Oh, Firewatch. What a strange, frustrating journey you are. On one hand, Firewatch contains everything I've come to love about indie games in recent years. It's got an emphasis on story with terrifically realized characters, a true sense of loneliness and isolation in a beautifully stylized environment that makes the most of technical shortcomings, and a healthy dose of personality. On the other hand, I can't help but feel that it's a little broken. As a game, I mean. By the time the credits roll, I have so many questions for Firewatch, some of which are like the good kind of questions, which I think the game is trying to provoke, and some which sort of make the game feel, well, sloppy. Like it's a little confused about what exactly it's trying to be.
Fuck, Delilah.
Fuck, indeed. We really need to get to the bottom of this.
Firstly, I do think this game does a lot right. Henry and Delilah are wonderfully voiced and realized, and genuine props to Firewatch for making its protagonist an over-the-hill schlub with demons. There's something wonderfully sad and grounded about Henry. Every time his chubby arms poked into frame, one adorned with a wedding ring, I was reminded that while there are many types of people underrepresented in video games as protagonists, normal people are still first and foremost amongst them. By the end of the story, after Delilah and Henry have engaged in an off-screen tryst and a number of creepy conspiracies have been posited, it's revealed that their tormentor has been a specter of Delilah's past. Ned has been monitoring Delilah and Henry, tapping into their conversations, and basically playing the game master of Firewatch, which is an echo of his dead son's love of tabletop role-playing games, leading both Henry and Delilah to paranoia and animosity. Now, this is both interesting and problematic in a couple of ways. First of all, it's a direct subversion and comment on game mechanics. As the player goes through the narrative, they become increasingly convinced that there is some sort of government conspiracy happening. When the mundane truth is revealed, the player is understandably somewhat unfulfilled. Wasn't there supposed to be something sinister? Wasn't I supposed to be important somehow? The answer is no. While Delilah held no love for Ned, it's not even exactly clear if Ned has targeted Delilah and Henry because of his son and what happened, or just because he could, and he was like losing his mind alone in the woods. His actions seem cruel, as does the kick to the player, which renders the journey up to that point somewhat empty. You've been chasing ghosts in the woods that ultimately have no value. Now, if the purpose of Firewatch is to tell a meta-narrative about video games and their expected mechanics, which the game makes no, hint towards, this is my own conjecture, this is somewhat interesting, but also undeniably frustrating. The implicit thesis of the game then becomes, you are not important, and you have wasted your time. The most defining aspect of the game's environment is its emptiness, and I don't mean that as a positive. I'm not suggesting arcade-style list achievements, but something defined would be nice. And this brings me back to all those questions that don't make me feel good, like real design questions, such as, why, in a game obviously meant to encourage introspection and exploration, do you leave the player nearly nothing to find? Why do I have to deal with the menial action of constantly switching the cache's padlocks to the same 4 numbers? Why even bother implementing choices in the dialogue that don't have any real dramatic impact on character development, relationships, or player progression? Why offer tantalizing quests for answers when the answers you find could not logically be foreseen and offer no real commentary on Henry's situation or past? Well, not one that Henry realizes anyway. There are obvious parallels between Ned and his son and Henry and his wife, but if Henry cues into that, he never makes the player privy to his revelation.
Henry, Look, you came out to put your memories behind you, and they're still right there in front of you.
In fact, Henry seems to learn nearly nothing from his time in the woods at all. He was regretful upon arrival for abandoning his wife, and he's regretful upon leaving. He really hasn't changed in any dramatic way that the player can see. Now, just as a brief aside, I suppose it's possible to argue that all of these changes do happen in Henry, but they're just happening off-screen? But I find that argument really kind of weak. I don't think the omission of this in Firewatch is intentional, but if it is, it's frankly pretty sloppy storytelling to let the audience provide the entire arc of your character themselves. Taken in this way, Firewatch becomes an almost anti-game. There's nothing like the warmth or epiphany that comes from playing something like Gone Home or The Beginner's Guide, which are like 2 obvious analogs to this experience, and they're also proof that this kind of indie game can be done spectacularly well. No, Firewatch is a game about a man who does nothing, learns nothing, and accomplishes nothing. He spends a lonely, empty season in the woods. The player may only walk, read, and open locks, but their choices will always lead to the same inescapable ending. Which is interesting, but fuck you.